Your wife isn't going anywhere today!
Move! Now! She's in medical danger!
Her truck lurched forward just enough to trap my wife's sedan against the curve of the Oakwood turnabout, blocking the only exit out of our gated neighborhood. I heard the engine growl before I saw the smirk of Valerie Huxley leaning out the window, eyes sharp with that familiar, poisonous confidence the community had learned to fear. "You're not going anywhere," she snapped, like she owned the asphalt beneath us, like a pregnant woman's safety was just another rule she could bend. Elena's hand flew to her belly. "Grant, my appointment?" "I know," I whispered, already stepping out of the passenger side as adrenaline strafed through me, but the board chair wasn't done. "You heard me?" she barked, swinging her door open and planting herself between the vehicles. "Your wife violated temporary placement parking protocols. She'll wait until I'm finished assessing the infraction." I stared at her. "There is no such protocol." "Oh, Commander," she said with a fake gasp. "Did I strike a nerve?" Stop scroll reversal. She had no idea she'd pushed the wrong man. "You're obstructing a medical-bound civilian," I said quietly. "I know the statute that governs this turnabout. I helped write the emergency access revisions." Her expression didn't break, but her eyes did. Just for a second. If you've ever felt that sting of injustice and the urge to stand up against someone who abuses their power, stay with me and hit subscribe now. She took a step closer, chin lifted. "In Hawthorne Creek," the enforcer in crimson said, "I decide what's an emergency. Not today." I felt Elena's anxious breathing even from yards away. Maybe that's why my voice stayed steady. Maybe that's why everything inside me shifted into the calm clarity I only felt on the job. "My name is Grant Mallory," I said, "and I don't need your permission to protect my family." The clipboard queen snorted. "You state trooper types think you can intimidate your way out of rules." I shook my head. "This isn't about rules. It's about my wife." A memory flashed, the sterile smell of a hospital hallway years ago, a monitor flatlining, a doctor shaking their head. I'd carried that loss like a locked box inside me, hoping never to reopen it. Seeing Elena gripping her stomach brought it all roaring back. "Valerie," I said, softer now but colder too, "move the truck." She folded her arms. "File a complaint." The tyrant in heels always loved that line, but she didn't understand what this place meant to us. We moved to Hawthorne Creek for peace, for safety, for the quiet confidence that our child, our miracle, would grow up away from chaos. The Oakwood turnabout had been symbolic for Elena the day we toured the neighborhood. "It feels like the place where we start. Fresh," she'd said, rubbing her stomach before we even knew we'd get pregnant. And now that same symbol was being twisted by a woman who saw control as oxygen. Neighbors slowed as they drove past. Some stayed, some watched. One whispered, "Oh no, she's doing it again." But I stepped forward, placing myself directly in Valerie's line of sight. "You're creating a hazard. Blocking this access point is a violation of state emergency code." "The officer of rules decides violations," she replied, tapping the HOA badge pinned to her binder. "Elena could be in distress. She looks fine to me." Elena winced, sharp, sudden, and I swear something inside me cracked. I kept my voice low, my posture steady. "This isn't a negotiation, Valerie. It is until I move my truck. And you will." The wind shifted, carrying the faint creak of branches over the entrance gate. A few neighbors stepped from their porches now, drawn by the sharp tension that had settled over the street. She didn't notice them. She noticed only me. "You think your badge scares me?" she sneered. "It's not my badge you should be scared of," I replied. "It's the truth." Her smirk faded, the first fracture in her armor. From behind me, Elena whispered, "Grant, please." I turned slightly. "I've got you, I promise." Then I faced Valerie again. Last chance. She stood her ground. So, I pulled out my phone, not to threaten, not to posture, but because protocol demanded I document obstruction of a medical-bound passenger. That's when her confidence finally faltered. That's where everything begins. And before I take you deeper into this story, tell me, where are you watching from? Elena's soft gasp still echoed in my ears as I held my phone up, framing the perfect shot of Valerie Huxley's truck, blocking the entire Oakwood turnabout. The board chair stiffened when she saw the camera icon light up, her shoulders hitching in a way she couldn't hide. She'd expected resistance, sure, but not documentation, not accountability, not a man who knew exactly which statutes she had just trampled on. The enforcer in crimson tried to recover, planting her hands on her hips as if she were posing for a courtroom portrait. "Put the phone down, Grant. This is an HOA matter, and you're escalating it." "You escalated it," I said, "when you blocked an expectant mother from leaving the neighborhood." "She's not in distress," the clipboard queen snapped. Elena's body tightened again, a short wince she tried to hide. That did something to me, stirred the memory I'd spent years suppressing. I inhaled slowly, letting the cool morning air ground me before speaking. "You don't get to decide that," I said. "You're not medical personnel, you're not law enforcement, and you're not above state code." The tyrant in heels rolled her eyes dramatically, loud enough for nearby neighbors to hear. "There you go again, flashing your authority around like it's supposed to impress anyone." "It's not meant to impress," I answered. "It's meant to protect." She hated that. Her jaw tightened, and her fingers dug into the binder she clung to like a shield. Valerie lived on control. She breathed it. This moment, the one where her power cracked, was something she wasn't prepared for. More neighbors trickled out. Nora Bishop stepped onto her porch, crossing her arms. "What's happening now?" she called. Valerie shot her a glare. "Go inside, Nora. This doesn't concern you." Nora didn't move. "Sure looks like it does." If there was one thing the officer of rules despised, it was losing an audience. She turned sharply to the gathering cluster of residents. "Everyone, return to your homes. This situation is under board review." "Board review?" I repeated. "You created the situation." "That's enough," she barked. "You'll follow the proper process, and the process begins with submitting a formal violation acknowledgement." "Not happening." Her nostrils flared. "Grant, don't push me." I stepped closer, lowering my voice enough that only she could hear. "You're blocking emergency access. That alone gives me grounds to issue a safety citation." She blinked, a fast, involuntary twitch, the first sign that she finally understood I wasn't bluffing. "You wouldn't," she whispered. I didn't respond. My silence was enough. Behind me, Elena gripped the car door, breathing harder. "Grant," she murmured, "it's tightening again." That snapped something in the crowd. A neighbor cursed under their breath. Another stepped forward and said, "Valerie, move the damn truck." But the clipboard queen lifted her chin higher in defiance. "If I move it now, he'll make it seem like I admitted wrongdoing." I stared at her. "You're more worried about your pride than a pregnant woman's safety?" Her face twitched. A storm, a desperate one, brewed behind her eyes. She wasn't thinking about Elena. She wasn't thinking about protocol. She wasn't thinking about the child growing inside my wife. She was thinking about losing power. "That truck stays," she said finally, voice trembling under the weight of her own ego. The air snapped cold around us. A few neighbors gasped. One woman muttered, "Is she insane?" I took one step forward. "Valerie, move it, now." "No," she said. "And if your wife drives around it, I'll file a reckless endangerment violation. I'll tow your vehicle. I'll fine you both. Don't test me." The tyrant in heels actually smirked, as if she'd just delivered the final word. But she had no idea what she'd triggered. I slid my phone into my pocket and leaned closer, locking eyes with her. "You've officially obstructed emergency-bound transit. I hope you know what that means." She swallowed hard, and for the first time, she stepped backward instead of forward. The crowd murmured, sensing the shift. "I'm giving you one last opportunity," I continued. "Move your truck, or I'll initiate the appropriate response." Valerie's voice cracked. "You think the HOA will let you file anything against me? You're wrong. They need me." "I don't work for the HOA," I said calmly, "and I don't need their permission to enforce safety code." A car rolled up behind us, slow, hesitant. It paused when the driver saw the blockade, then backed up. The whole neighborhood was watching now. I turned toward Elena. "Stay with me. We'll get you out." She nodded weakly. Then I faced Valerie one more time. "You just made this bigger than you realize," I said. Her mouth parted slightly, fear, confusion, disbelief blending into one. Because she knew. This wasn't going away. Not today. Not ever. I didn't move. Not yet. Not while Elena leaned against the car door, breathing through another wave of tension that tightened her whole body. Her knuckles whitened on the frame, and even from a few feet away, I could hear the shaky exhale she tried so hard to hide. She was strong, stronger than most, but she shouldn't have had to be strong here. Not because of this. Not because of Valerie Huxley. The board chair stood rooted beside her truck, arms crossed so tightly against her chest, the tendons in her wrists strained. She looked like a statue carved out of stubbornness and insecurity. But behind the rigid posture, something else flickered, a pulse of doubt, quickly buried beneath her usual arrogance. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement near the maintenance cart parked across the street. Sean Pritcher, the HOA's maintenance supervisor, had stepped halfway out of his small transport vehicle. His hands hesitated on the handlebar, fingers gripping the metal, as if unsure whether to intervene or disappear. His eyes bounced between Valerie, Elena, and me, his internal struggle as loud as the birds chirping overhead. "Sean!" Valerie snapped, pointing at him with two stiff fingers. "Don't just stand there. Document this. All of it." His shoulders tensed. "Ma'am, I wasn't sure what the situation was." "It's a violation," the enforcer in crimson barked. "Obvious, immediate, and escalating because he refuses to comply." Sean swallowed, hard. "Ma'am, she looks like she's in pain." Valerie's eyes burned into him. "Your job isn't to diagnose pain, it's to follow instructions." His gaze shifted again, landing on Elena with a flicker of compassion. Her face had gone paler, her free hand pressing against her abdomen. Sweat dotted the edge of her hairline. I moved to her side, steadying her. "Breathe, I've got you." Elena nodded, but her jaw tightened as another wave hit. This wasn't normal discomfort. I knew that. Sean knew that. Everyone watching knew that. Everyone. Except, or rather, pretending not to see it, Valerie Huxley. The clipboard queen jabbed a finger toward her truck. "I said no one moves until the infraction is logged. That's the procedure." "That's your procedure," I said, voice low. "Not the law's." A neighbor across the street muttered, "This is getting out of hand." Another added, "She can't block a pregnant woman like this." Valerie turned sharply. "Everyone needs to return inside before you create unnecessary confusion and panic." But people didn't move. They stayed. Phones lifted. Doors cracked wider. Windows slid open. The tyrant in heels could feel the crowd shifting, power slipping through her fingers with every second she kept that truck in place. Sean took a tentative step closer. "Ma'am, maybe we should let them through, just until she gets checked out." Valerie spun on him so fast he flinched. "Are you questioning me, Sean?" No, he stammered. "I just think—" "You don't think, you comply." His posture shrank, shoulders curling inward, but he didn't go back to the cart. He didn't retreat. He hovered, stuck between loyalty to the HOA and the moral weight of what he was witnessing. His eyes returned to Elena, longer this time, heavier. He wasn't just watching a rule enforcement anymore. He was watching a woman in pain, a neighbor, a human being, and the guilt of doing nothing was carving circles under his collar. "Grant," Elena whispered, leaning more against me, "it hurts." That was it. That was the moment everything inside me sharpened. I faced Valerie. "Move the truck, or I'll declare this an obstruction of emergency-bound transit and act accordingly." "You don't have that authority here." "Yes," I said, stepping forward. "I do. And if you push this any further, I'll bring in the state's emergency access oversight." For the first time, fear rippled across her expression. She smothered it quickly, but not quickly enough. "You're bluffing," she snapped. I didn't blink. "You're endangering my wife." The officer of rules opened her mouth, but Sean spoke first. "Ma'am, he's right." Valerie froze. Sean's voice cracked with hesitation, but it held more courage than he realized. "This isn't safe, and if anything happens to her, it's on us." The crowd murmured. Valerie's breath hitched. "Sean, don't forget who signs your checks." He looked down, shame burning in his face. But when he lifted his eyes again, something was different, stronger. He didn't back her. He didn't step away. He stayed rooted, caught, torn, conflicted, and very clearly drifting away from her side, a crack in her foundation, one she didn't see coming, and one I intended to widen. Sean's hesitation didn't just rattle Valerie Huxley. It cracked her composure wide open. The board chair's nostrils flared, her jaw clenching so tightly I could see the muscles twitch beneath her skin. She wasn't used to resistance, not from residents, not from neighbors, and definitely not from the HOA staff she towered over like a self-appointed monarch. "You're out of line," she snapped at Sean, voice jagged. "Step back and let me manage this." Sean didn't move. His conflicted posture, half forward, half retreat, hung in the air like a tether being stretched to its breaking point. He swallowed, eyes flicking toward Elena again. "Ma'am, please, she's not okay." The enforcer in crimson turned her glare on me, desperate to regain control. "This is harassment, and if you think I'm going to cave because you're raising your voice—" "I haven't raised my voice," I said, "and you know it." A neighbor coughed behind us, muttering, "She's losing it." Another whispered, "She's gonna snap any second." Valerie heard the whispers. She always heard everything that threatened her authority. The clipboard queen lifted her binder like a shield, flipping through pages with performative fury. "You're in violation of Section 12C, blocking board activity, and 14F, creating a disturbance, plus 9B, threatening HOA personnel." "You're reaching," I said. "The officer of rules doesn't need to reach," she retorted, slapping her binder shut. "I enforce. That's the difference." Elena let out a quiet cry, short, breathy, involuntary. My hand was at her back instantly. "Is it getting worse?" I whispered. She nodded, teeth clenched. That was enough to wipe whatever patience remained in me. "Valerie, I'm going to say this once more," I said, turning squarely toward the tyrant in heels. "Move the truck." She swung her chin upward. "Or what, Grant? You'll write me a ticket?" "I'll do a lot more than that." The crowd buzzed, phones rising at new angles, capturing every second of this unraveling disaster. Valerie noticed. She always noticed. Her face flushed a dangerous shade of red. "Put the phones away," she shouted. "This is private HOA business." "It became public the moment you endangered a pregnant woman," Nora called from the sidewalk. "And we've all had enough of your nonsense." Valerie snapped, "Go back inside, Nora." "No," Nora said, folding her arms. "You don't get to bully the whole street anymore." The clipboard queen's gaze flickered, fear mixed with fury. Losing control of Sean was one thing. Losing the neighborhood was another. She turned back to me, voice lower but laced with venom. "If your wife tries to leave," she said, "I'll call the tow company myself, and I'll make sure the violation sticks." Elena gasped again, longer this time, her hand gripping my forearm for support. My pulse thundered. "You listening?" Valerie continued, stepping closer. "I decide how this ends." "No," I said. "You already decided, and you chose wrong." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you just triggered a state safety clause." A thin line appeared between her brows, confusion, but I didn't elaborate, not yet. Sean finally stepped forward, voice small but shaking with urgency. "Ma'am, the bylaws don't override state emergency code. He's right." Valerie spun on him so sharply he flinched backward. "You don't repeat his words. You don't take his side. You work for the HOA. You work for me." Sean's voice cracked. "I work for the community." It was the closest he'd ever come to defying her outright. A seismic moment. Valerie went silent. Her eyes darted to the neighbors, then to Elena, then to my phone, then to the truck. She was calculating, fumbling, drowning beneath the weight of a situation she couldn't bully her way out of. Finally, she hissed, "If you think you can intimidate me with state codes and your rank—" I cut her off. "This isn't intimidation. It's reality." I reached into my wallet and pulled out my commander's card, the one issued specifically for emergency route obstruction enforcement. I didn't flash it. I simply let the reflection of the morning light hit its surface as she stared, eyes widening. "That's fake," she said too quickly. "You know it's not." A hush fell. Even the wind seemed to pause. Elena leaned into me again, her voice trembling. "Grant, we need to go. Now." I nodded without looking away from Valerie. "We will." She took a half step back, heels scraping the pavement. For the first time, the tyrant in heels looked like the woman she truly was beneath the power she borrowed, frightened, cornered, and seconds away from losing everything she built on intimidation. This wasn't escalation anymore. It was the breaking point. The shift in Valerie Huxley's face told me everything. She finally realized she was standing on the edge of a cliff she'd built with her own hands. But the board chair wasn't the type to back down gracefully. She dragged in a sharp breath, lifted her chin, and forced her voice into something resembling authority. "You think flashing a little card changes anything?" she snapped. "This is private property. HOA jurisdiction supersedes—" "It doesn't supersede state emergency access law," I said. "And you know it." Her posture wobbled for half a second. The clipboard queen gripped her binder tighter, knuckles white, fingers trembling. She tried masking it by flipping to another page, pretending she was searching for something relevant. But I knew better, and so did everyone watching. Sean hovered near the maintenance cart like he wanted to disappear into the metal. The internal battle twisting inside him was written across every line of his face. He kept glancing at Elena, seeing her pain, recognizing the danger, then back at Valerie like he was waiting for some unseen permission to do the right thing. He wouldn't get it. Not from her. Elena winced again, gripping the edge of the car door. A soft sound broke from her lips, and my instincts sharpened instantly. I leaned toward her. "Talk to me. Sharp? Cramping? Pressure?" "Sharp," she whispered, eyes shining. "It's getting harder. Grant, please." That was the moment my patience broke. I stepped forward, closing the distance between me and the tyrant in heels with controlled calm. "This isn't a debate anymore. Move the truck, or I declare this a safety obstruction and escalate. Officially." A tremor flickered in her jaw. "You can't escalate on me, Commander. I'm the officer of rules here. And I'm the commander of state emergency operations," I said quietly. "If you block a medical-bound passenger, that's obstruction. If you knowingly maintain the blockade after being informed of medical need, that's a second violation. And if harm comes to her because of your delay—" I stopped there. Let her fill in the rest. Her breath hitched. Everyone heard it. Sean took one step closer, voice unsteady but determined. "Ma'am, he's not wrong. If she's really in trouble and we prevent her from leaving—" Valerie rounded on him. "You stay out of this!" "I can't!" he burst out, face flushing. "This is wrong." Her eyes went wild, like she couldn't comprehend the idea of losing control in real time. "You're my staff!" she snarled. "You follow my directives." Sean's throat bobbed. "Not when someone's hurting." The crowd murmured again, louder now. A few neighbors stepped off their porches entirely, moving closer, forming an unspoken wall behind me. It wasn't rebellion yet, but it was the beginning of one. Valerie saw it. She saw everything slipping, which is exactly why she escalated. "This entire situation will be reported to the board," she said, voice sharp with desperation. "You'll both face fines, multiple, and those recording," she pointed wildly at the cluster of phones, "will face penalties as well." "You can't penalize people for documenting unsafe behavior," Nora called out. "I can penalize disruptions," the enforcer in crimson snapped back. "You created the disruption," Nora replied. That one landed, hard. Valerie's nostrils flared. She pivoted toward me again, fixating on the one thing she thought she could control: ego. "You want to fight, Grant?" she spat. "Fine, but you're not dragging me into your theatrics. File whatever you think you can. You won't win." I exhaled slowly, letting the weight of the next words settle around us. "I don't need to win," I said. "I need to protect my wife, and if that means bringing in higher authority—" "You wouldn't dare." I met her eyes. "Try me." A hush fell. Birds stopped. Neighbors froze. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Sean looked between us, his conscience tearing through him in real time, and that was when it happened. A sharp, unmistakable sound escaped Elena, longer, deeper, full of real pain. Everyone turned toward her. Valerie's expression faltered, cracked, collapsed into something bordering on fear. Elena clutched her stomach, breath shuddering. "Something's wrong." "Grant?" My heart dropped. That was the moment this ceased being a neighborhood dispute. This was now a medical emergency, and Valerie Huxley was standing on the wrong side of it. Elena's cry cut through the air like a blade, sharp, raw, piercing, and every instinct I possessed surged forward at once. She bent at the waist, clutching her stomach with both hands, her breath shaking in rapid bursts. The world narrowed to her silhouette against the morning light, trembling and vulnerable on the curve of the Oakwood turnabout. This was no longer tension. This was crisis. I turned back toward Valerie Huxley, and whatever patience I'd held onto evaporated. "Move! The truck! Now!" The board chair froze, binder pressed against her chest like a lifeline she didn't know how to hold anymore. Her eyes darted from me to Elena, to the growing crowd behind us, then back again, calculating, panicked, unraveling. But instead of stepping aside, she grasped for the only rope she understood: control. "She's exaggerating," the enforcer in crimson said, voice unnaturally high. "Pregnant women get uncomfortable all the time." "She's not uncomfortable," I snapped. "She's in distress." The clipboard queen flinched as if the word itself pierced her. Her gaze flicked to Sean, searching for backup. He didn't move. If anything, he looked ready to bolt toward Elena instead of her. "Ma'am," he whispered, "she needs help." "Stay out of it," Valerie hissed. "You don't know what's happening." "She's hurting," he insisted. "I can see it." Elena whimpered again, her knees threatening to buckle. I caught her before she slipped, holding her upright as she leaned into me, her breathing frantic against my shoulder. "Grant," she whispered, voice cracking, please get me out." "I will," I said, my voice low and steady. "I swear I will." The tyrant in heels shook her head stubbornly. "You're trying to manipulate me." I stepped toward her so quickly she stumbled backward. "Manipulate you? You're blocking a woman in labor pain, a woman carrying our child. This is an emergency." Neighbors murmured, voices rising with equal parts anger and disbelief. "Just move the truck. She can't be serious right now. Someone call an ambulance." Valerie whipped around, snapping at the crowd. "No one calls emergency services without board approval." That did it. The community collectively recoiled. Phones rose like a forest of witness. A few neighbors gasped audibly. One woman whispered, "She's lost her mind." I felt my pulse hammering in my throat. "Valerie, listen, carefully," I said, leaning forward until my face was inches from hers. "If you don't move that truck, I'll execute emergency authority under state code. That means I override everything you think you control." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Fear, real fear, finally, but still, she refused to yield. I need proof she's in danger," she whispered, clinging to the last thread of imagined protocol. Elena let out a broken sound, half cry, half gasp, and doubled over, her fingers digging into my arm. That was all the proof any human being should have needed. Sean rushed forward this time. "Ma'am, let them through." His voice cracked, not with fear of losing his job, but with the moral weight of staying silent any longer. The officer of rules turned on him, face twisted. "If you disobey me, you're finished here." "I don't care," he said firmly. "I'm not letting her suffer." His words cut through the tension like lightning. Valerie's facade shattered. Her breath came in sharp, shallow bursts as she looked between Sean, the crowd, and Elena, who was now gripping the side mirror of the car just to stay upright. "This isn't my fault," Valerie muttered, voice trembling. "She shouldn't have parked there. She's violating protocols. Protocol doesn't matter," I said. "Life does." A quiet fell across the turnabout, the kind that comes before irreversible decisions. Elena clutched her stomach again, crying out, her knees buckling. I caught her, lowering her carefully until she could brace herself against the car door. That was the moment Valerie broke. Her face drained, eyes widening as she finally saw. Not an infraction, not a resident she could bully, but a woman she might actually harm. I didn't know she was that bad," she whispered, horrified. "You knew," I said. "You just didn't care until now." She took a half step back, shaking her head. I need time. I need to think." "You don't have time," I said. "Move the truck, or I will take action you can't undo." Her lips trembled, her hands shook, and for the first time she looked genuinely terrified. Not of me, but of the consequences she'd just created. Behind us, sirens sounded faintly in the distance. Someone must have called after all. Valerie heard them, and that sound broke her. The wail of the approaching sirens washed over the turnabout like a warning tide, and for the first time since this nightmare started, Valerie Huxley looked genuinely shaken. Her fingers twitched against the hem of her blazer, her eyes darting between Elena, still hunched against the car, and the neighbors filming every second. The board chair wasn't in control anymore. She was cornered, Sean stepped closer to me, lowering his voice so only I could hear. Grant, there's something you need to know. I watched Valerie pace in tiny, frantic circles, like she was calculating her escape route. Tell me, I said quietly, keeping one arm braced around Elena as she breathed through another wave of pain. Sean swallowed hard, eyes flicking toward the clipboard queen. She hasn't been following protocol, not just today, for months. My jaw tightened. What kind of protocol? He hesitated. Not because he didn't know, but because part of him still feared her. His hands shook slightly, his shoulders tense, his gaze glued to the tyrant in heels like she could crack his career with a glance. Look at me, I said. You're safe. He finally met my eyes. She's been bypassing emergency access rules. She locked the fire lane twice last month. She ordered us to stall medical responders for her sister's parking citation. She even... Valerie spun around, catching the whisper. Sean! Her voice cracked sharp as shattered glass. Stop talking right now. He flinched, but didn't stop. She's been using her position to control residents, sir, threatening fines, withholding permits. And she said... He took a breath. She said pregnant women exaggerate symptoms for sympathy. I heard her say it last week. The enforcer in crimson went pale. The neighbors heard every word. A ripple of disgust passed through the crowd. Valerie rushed toward him. You're lying. You're twisting things. He's twisting... No, Sean said, voice steadying. I'm done covering for you. The clipboard queen froze mid-step, her mouth open, horror blooming across her face. She turned to me instead, desperate for footing. Don't listen to him. He's disgruntled. He's making things up to... Enough, I said. Your fear is showing. Her eyes narrowed, but her voice wavered. I was trying to enforce order. You were endangering people, I said. And you're still doing it. Behind me, Elena gasped as another sharp pain hit. I held her up, feeling her nails dig into my hand. Her forehead pressed against my shoulder, her breath shaky, her voice barely a whisper. Grant, my back. It's getting worse. Every heartbeat inside me surged with cold, controlled urgency. I needed her in a hospital. Now. Valerie, I said, turning fully to the officer of rules. You're going to tell me the truth, the real reason you blocked Elena's car today. I issued a violation, she stammered. Her tire was touching the curb line. That's not it, I said. Try again. Her eyes flicked sideways toward her house, then downward, then anywhere but at me. She cracked. Fine lines appeared around her mouth. Her shoulders collapsed a fraction. Her breath trembled. I can't lose authority, she whispered. If residents see me bending, even once, everything collapses. They walk all over me. So you'd rather put a pregnant woman in danger? I asked. She didn't answer, and silence was answer enough. Sean stepped closer again, voice firmer now. Commander, there's more. She told us not to document anything involving her neighbors. No photos, no incident logs, nothing traceable. Valerie spun around, hands trembling. Stop lying. I never... You said if we wrote things down, they could be used against you, he said. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A few neighbors muttered curses under their breath. This wasn't just abuse of authority. This was intentional concealment. And the sirens were getting louder. Valerie's mask cracked completely. Her voice broke. Please don't report this. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't mean for her to get hurt. You meant to win, I said, no matter the cost. She covered her mouth with a shaking hand, anguish spilling through the cracks. For the first time, the tyrant in heels wasn't a tyrant at all, just someone terrified of the fallout she created. Grant, Elena whispered again, eyes glassy, knees buckling slightly. Please. I tightened my grip on her. I've got you. Sean looked from Elena to me, jaw set with new resolve. Sir, if you give the word, I'll get every detail on record, every violation, every abuse. I'll testify. His internal struggle was over. The conflicted witness had chosen a side, and it wasn't hers. The moment Sean stepped fully onto my side, the entire street felt different. Like the balance finally shifted, like the truth finally had weight. Even the neighbors seemed to breathe differently, leaning in as if this was the moment they'd been silently waiting for. Valerie Huxley stood rigid in the center of the turnabout, the red of her blazer almost trembling with her. The enforcer in crimson had lost her audience, and she knew it. But she wasn't finished, not by a long shot. "Everyone needs to calm down," Valerie barked, lifting her chin with fake composure. "This is a misunderstanding, a serious one, and spreading misinformation will only escalate things further." I stepped forward, keeping one steady arm wrapped around Elena's waist as she leaned on me for balance. "The only escalation happening here," I said quietly, "is the one you created." Her eyes flicked toward my wife, then toward the crowd, then back to me, calculating, flailing, desperate for a foothold. "Grant, be reasonable. You're letting emotion cloud judgment. You're a military man, aren't you? You should understand authority. You blocked a pregnant woman's car," I said, "and now you're hiding behind the word authority like it can erase what you did." She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her continue. "I've spent 20 years training troopers to spot power misused in its smallest forms," I added. "You're not subtle, you're not careful, and you're not in control anymore." That hit harder than shouting ever could. The clipboard queen visibly flinched, her fingers curling into her palm, knuckles whitening. Behind me, Elena exhaled shakily, whispering, "Her truck." She parked it inches from the bumper. I kept telling her I needed to leave. "I know," I murmured, "and she's going to answer for every second she took from you." Valerie's voice sharpened again. "You're twisting the narrative. She was violating a parking code." "No," I said. "She was breathing." The tyrant in heels took half a step back. For the first time, she looked genuinely scared, not of me, but of consequences she could no longer outrun. Sean stepped closer, his voice steady, his badge catching the afternoon sunlight. "I've already texted my supervisor," he said. "Everything's in motion. If you want to add a statement, Commander, now's the time." The officer of rule's eyes widened. "What did you do?" "Protocol," he said simply. "The thing you taught us to ignore." She swayed slightly, her breath coming out unevenly. "Sean, please don't do this." "You did this," he replied. A hush fell over the neighbors. Birds quieted on the roof lines. Somewhere down the block, a screen door creaked. The air hung heavy, thick with truth that finally had no place to hide. I looked at Sean. "We proceed exactly by the book," I said. "Every step, every report, every violation." He nodded, and that's when something shifted inside me. Not anger, not revenge, but clarity. This wasn't just about Elena. This wasn't just about one blocked car. This was about a pattern, an escalating threat. And now, with Sean's testimony, I had the fuel to ignite the entire disciplinary process. Victory strategy, number 5, outside authority intervention, was finally aligning. But Valerie wasn't done fighting, not yet. Her voice cracked as she said, "Grant, your career, your reputation. You sure you want to go public with this? People will think you're bullying a civilian." I stared at her. "You put my wife and child in danger," I said, "and you're worried about optics?" Her lips twitched. I didn't know she was..." "Elena's 7 months along," I snapped. "You heard her asking to leave. You heard her ask twice. And you still moved your truck closer." Gasps broke through the crowd. Her knees almost buckled. The enforcer in crimson wasn't untouchable. She was unraveling. Another contraction hit Elena, this one sharper. Her grip tightened on my arm. "Grant, we need to go," she whispered. "I know," I said, turning to Sean. "Clear us a path." He nodded and signaled the neighbors to step back. Valerie, however, stepped forward. "You can't take her yet," she whispered, trembling. "Not until we resolve this." Those words snapped something inside the entire crowd. Resolve this? Right here? Right now? With my wife in pain? I turned fully toward her. "Valerie," I said, voice low, steady, final. "If you don't move out of the way, I will treat this as an obstruction of emergency transport." Her mouth opened, but no sound came out, because she finally understood. The power she clung to so tightly didn't belong to her anymore. It belonged to the truth, and the truth was walking right through her. Sean cleared the path just long enough for us to guide Elena toward the car, but the second we reached the driveway, the energy behind us shifted, sharp, electric, unstable. The neighbors weren't dispersing the way Valerie Huxley hoped. They were following, eyes wide, breath held, waiting to see what the clipboard queen would try next. And she didn't disappoint. The enforcer in crimson strode after us, heels punching the pavement like angry punctuation marks. "You can't leave!" she snapped, voice cracking. "This situation isn't resolved." I didn't even turn around. "Move, Valerie!" But the tyrant in heels wasn't the type to recognize lines she shouldn't cross. She stepped directly between us and the car, planting herself like she owned the asphalt beneath her. Elena tightened her grip on my jacket, breathing through another contraction as she leaned into me. That was it. That was the moment any remaining restraint in me burned clean away. I faced the officer of rules fully. "Valerie," I said, each word steady, "if you obstruct us again, I will treat it as willful interference with medical transport, and I will act." For the first time, her bravado faltered. Her throat bobbed. She swallowed hard. I didn't know she was actually in distress," she stammered. "She looked fine earlier." "She wasn't fine earlier," Elena said softly. "You just didn't care." Gasps rippled behind us. Even Valerie noticed the shift, how every face around her was changing, hardening. She pressed a step forward anyway. "You're twisting this. You always twist things." I did nothing wrong. That denial, that absolute refusal to acknowledge reality, that was why this neighborhood had suffered for years, and that was why this moment mattered. "Sean," I said without looking away from her, "start recording." He raised his phone immediately, steady hands, steady expression. Already rolling. Valerie froze, not because she feared the camera, but because she feared what the camera would expose, her own lack of control. I kept my voice level. "I need to get my wife to the hospital. Step aside." But she didn't move. Instead, she whispered something small, something desperate. "You can't do this to me." I almost laughed, not from humor, but from disbelief. "To you," I repeated. "I'm protecting my family." The clipboard queen's jaw clenched. "This will destroy me." "No," I said. "Your choices will." The crowd murmured again, louder this time. Two neighbors exchanged looks, another film from the sidewalk. Others whispered about calling news stations. The humiliation she always used as a weapon was now being forged against her. She crumbled a little, enough to reveal the truth, enough to push the next phase of the plan into place. Victory strategy, they may have 5, outside authority intervention, required pressure built from multiple sides. Public exposure, live recording, witness testimony, and clear obstruction were the exact combination needed for higher authorities to act swiftly. This wasn't chaos, this was alignment. I pressed the advantage. "Sean, call it in. I want the incident number started before we leave." Valerie snapped back to life. "You can't start an official file on me. You're violating safety protocols," he said calmly. "You're escalating a medical emergency, and you're ignoring multiple verbal warnings. That's enough for an incident log." Her breathing became uneven, almost frantic. "Sean, please, think about what you're doing." "I am," he replied, for the first time in a long time. She turned to the crowd instead. "You all know me. You know I keep this neighborhood running. I keep it safe. I keep it in order." But not one person stepped forward to defend her. Not one. The tyrant in heels lost every ounce of borrowed power she'd been thriving on. I placed a hand on Elena's back. "Let's get you in the car." We moved again, this time with more determination. Sean guided us, ensuring Valerie stayed far enough back not to interfere again. But right before I helped Elena into the passenger seat, something caught my eye. Valerie wasn't following. She was watching us, with an expression I hadn't seen on her once in all the years she'd tormented this place. Fear, but not fear of me, fear of consequences. And consequences were coming whether she wanted them or not. Sean approached me quietly. "Commander," he said, "the incident report is logged. Dispatch flagged the HOA's record, and, it looks like this isn't her first obstruction complaint." That hit like a loaded chamber sliding home. She had priors. And now she'd handed me the perfect opportunity to use them. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. "Good," I said, "because after tonight," I looked back toward the fallen queen of control. "She won't be running anything anymore." I drove Elena straight to the hospital, every muscle in my body tight with focus. Even as she squeezed my hand through each sharp wave, I kept my breathing controlled, my mind steady. Years of crisis response conditioned me for moments like this. Calm under fire, clarity through chaos. But this time, the fire wasn't a roadside crash or a late-night pursuit. This time, it had a name, Valerie Huxley. By the time Elena was admitted and stabilized, twilight had fallen. I stepped out of the hospital room long enough to call Sean. He answered on the first ring. "You ready for the next phase, Commander?" he asked. "Tell me what you found?" He exhaled sharply. "Those prior complaints I mentioned? There are more, a lot more. Residents who said the board chair used intimidation tactics, blocked vehicles, confronted teenagers, even followed one woman home after a dispute." My jaw tightened. "How many filed reports?" "Only 3, the rest were too afraid." A pause. "Until now." Exactly what I needed. Outside authority intervention required volume, impact, patterns. With Valerie's newest stunt on record, everything she'd buried for years was drifting to the surface. "Meet me at the HOA building," I said. "We finish this tonight." He didn't hesitate. "On my way." The Oakwood HOA office looked almost ceremonial under the streetlights. Sterile glass panels, manicured shrubs. A place designed to intimidate instead of serve. And standing in front of it, arms crossed, lips trembling, was the enforcer in crimson herself. The moment she saw me, she straightened like someone pulling invisible strings above her shoulders. "Grant," she said stiffly, "we need to talk." "I'm not here to talk," I replied. "I'm here to finalize the report." The clipboard queen's composure cracked. You can't do this. You know what happens if the county intervenes. They'll investigate every board action, every vote, every amendment. I'll lose everything, my reputation, my career. And my wife almost lost our child because you wanted to make a point, I said. You weaponized your authority. Now you answer for it. Her breath hitched. I never meant for this to escalate. You have to believe me. I didn't. And more importantly, she didn't need my belief. She needed accountability. Sean arrived, stepping between us with a clipboard in hand, ironic in a way that wasn't lost on either of us. "I pulled the resident interviews you requested," he said. 6 neighbors agreed to provide statements. 2 more said they'd record video testimony. The tyrant in heels blanched. "They're lying. I've kept this neighborhood in order for years. I've enforced rules no one else had the courage to uphold." "Rules aren't the problem," I said. "It's how you use them." She paced, hands shaking, trying to salvage the power slipping through her fingers. "If you file this, the county will suspend me. The board will replace me. My son, my family, will lose standing here." "Your son will be fine," I replied. "You, that depends on what you choose next." Her eyes flickered with something, fear, rage, pride, all tangled together. "You think you can intimidate me because you wear a uniform?" "I don't need intimidation," I said evenly. "I have evidence." Sean handed her the preliminary summary. She scanned it, and her knees actually buckled for half a second. "You spoke to all of them," she breathed. "Not all," Sean said. "More are coming forward." Something inside her snapped. "You're doing this because of her," she spat. "Your pregnant wife cried, and suddenly I'm a villain. She faked it. She wanted attention." That did it. The officer of rules had crossed her final line. I stepped in close enough for her to feel the cold shift in the air. My wife's contraction tracker showed vitals dipping. The hospital confirmed stress-induced tightening. You put lives at risk. Her face went pale. Then I added, "And the county investigator will receive the full medical report in the morning." She staggered backward like the words physically hit her. "You already called them?" she whispered. "Yes," I said, and they were very interested in the pattern. Sean placed a sealed envelope in my hand. "Commander, these are the signatures. Residents officially requesting emergency review and suspension." Perfect. Exactly what the intervention strategy needed. I turned back to Valerie. "It's over." Her lips trembled. "Please, don't do this." "You did it to yourself," I said. "Now face it." For the first time since the day she seized control of Oakwood, the woman who ruled through fear stood powerless, silenced not by force, but by the truth she could no longer outrun. And the real confrontation was still ahead. By the next evening, the HOA hall was packed, standing room only, bodies shoulder to shoulder, voices whispering in currents of tension that practically hummed through the air. Word had spread faster than wildfire. Residents who once avoided speaking against the board were now arriving early, clutching printed statements, phone recordings, screenshots, every piece of evidence they'd swallowed for years. And in the center of the room, stiff-backed at the head table, sat Valerie Huxley. The enforcer in crimson wore a calmer expression tonight, but only on the surface. Her hands trembled against the polished wood, fingers interlaced so tightly her knuckles were almost white. Even the clipboard queen's signature accessory, the thick leather folder she used to wield like a scepter, lay unopened beside her. Her power had drained out long before the meeting began. I took the front row seat, positioned intentionally central. Sean stood behind me with 3 other deputies, not for intimidation, but because the county investigator insisted they remain present for the testimony phase. The room quieted when the investigator stepped forward, a tall, composed woman with sharp eyes and a voice designed for truth. "This emergency meeting has been called at the request of 8 Oakwood residents," she began. "Under state statute, their complaints are being reviewed for potential misuse of authority and obstruction of emergency transport." A low wave of murmurs surged through the crowd. Valerie kept her eyes glued to the table. The investigator lifted her notes. "We will begin with statements. Commander Lawson, would you like to proceed first?" I rose, aware of every gaze on me. "When my wife experienced severe pain," I said, voice steady, "we attempted to leave for the hospital. Ms. Huxley parked her truck 6 inches from our bumper, blocking us in. My wife requested multiple times to leave. Instead of assisting, Ms. Huxley moved her truck closer. A woman in the back gasped. A man whispered, 'Unbelievable.' Every sound cracked through the room. I continued. Her actions delayed medical care for my pregnant wife. It could have been fatal. She also attempted to obstruct us again after emergency responders were notified. Every word landed with a weight the tyrant in heels couldn't deflect. The investigator nodded. "Thank you. Are there witnesses?" Sean stepped forward. "I was present. I recorded the obstruction. I also logged the prior complaints that were previously buried." 3 neighbors followed. One elderly man with shaking hands, a mother clutching her phone, a teenager who had clearly rehearsed his short statement 10 times over. With each testimony, the officer of rules shrank in her chair. Her gaze flicked desperately across the crowd, searching for even one ally. None rose, none spoke, none offered her the loyalty she'd demanded for years. She was alone. Completely, utterly alone. The investigator finally turned to her. "Ms. Huxley, you may speak." Valerie stood slowly, palms flat on the table. Her breath shook. "All of this is an exaggeration," she said. "I acted within board authority. If residents can't follow basic guidelines, the neighborhood falls apart." A man shouted, "You followed us home for a trash bin." A woman called, "You threatened fines for kids drawing chalk on the sidewalk." Another added, "You said my wheelchair ramp violated aesthetics." The room erupted, not in chaos, but in release. Years of tension, finally spoken aloud. The clipboard queen pounded the table, trying to regain control. "Order! This meeting needs to maintain order." But the irony was too much. The hall fell silent. But not because she demanded it, because the investigator raised a single hand. "Ms. Huxley," she said, "this board was not granted legal authority to obstruct vehicles or impede emergency transport. Your interpretation of HOA scope exceeds state guidelines." The blood drained from Valerie's face. "As a result," the investigator continued, "effective immediately, you are suspended pending full review. You may not act in any board capacity until the investigation concludes." A ripple of shock rolled through the hall, followed by applause from the back row that spread, building into something powerful, cathartic, unstoppable. Valerie's composure shattered. "No, you can't suspend me. I built this place." "No," a resident called out. "You controlled it." Her eyes darted to me, wide, pleading, terrified. "Grant, please say something." I held her gaze. "You did this?" I said quietly. "And now, you face it." Her knees wavered as she sank back into the chair, the tyrant in heels collapsing into the reality she had created. And for the first time, Oakwood breathed. The real victory was only moments away. The hall emptied slowly, neighbors lingering in clusters as if afraid to let the moment end. It wasn't just a meeting. It was a release, a collective exhale after years under the weight of one woman's unchecked authority. Even after the county investigator packed up her files and the deputies cleared the aisles, the energy remained, light, relieved, hopeful. But Valerie Huxley hadn't moved. The clipboard queen sat slumped behind the board table, staring at nothing. The enforcer in crimson had dimmed into something smaller, stripped of the power she used to wield like a weapon. The tyrant in heels couldn't even look up when I stepped toward her. Sean lingered near the doorway, giving us space. I stopped 2 feet from her. "It's done, Valerie," her voice cracked. "You think you saved this place, but you destroyed me." "No," I said calmly. "You destroyed yourself. Tonight just revealed it." Her eyes glistened with something between desperation and disbelief. "You don't understand. This board was all I had. It gave me purpose. It gave me control." "That's the problem," I replied. "You didn't want a community. You wanted obedience." The officer of rules flinched. Maybe I pushed too hard, but I kept things consistent. "Consistency isn't cruelty," I said, "and what you did to my wife wasn't enforcement. It was spite." She opened her mouth, then closed it again, the truth sealing her silence. Behind me, residents whispered to one another, but not about her this time. They were talking about forming committees, new bylaws, fresh leadership. Oakwood was already rebuilding itself in real time. That was the beauty of community. The moment the weight lifts, everything rises. Valerie glanced toward the crowd. "They hate me." "They feared you," I corrected. "Fear isn't loyalty." She swallowed. "What happens now?" "That's up to the county and the full investigation." I held her gaze. "But from this moment forward, you're done here." A tremor passed through her shoulders, not rage, but resignation. I turned away, heading back toward where Elena stood, supported by 2 neighbors. She looked tired, but stronger now, her hand resting protectively over her belly. When I reached her, she leaned into me with a quiet sigh. "You okay?" I asked. "Better," she whispered. "The baby's moving. The doctor says stress triggered everything earlier." Hearing that softened something tight in my chest. Sean stepped beside us. "Commander," he said, "the investigator wants your final statement first thing in the morning. After that, they'll begin formal removal proceedings." "Good," I said. "How's the neighborhood looking?" He smiled. "People are already volunteering for interim roles. Feels like change." It did. For the first time in years, Oakwood felt alive. We stepped outside, the night air cool against our skin. A small circle of neighbors approached, people who once whispered from behind curtains now speaking openly. "Thank you for standing up to her," one woman said. "You saved all of us," another murmured. I shook my head. "You all saved yourselves the moment you spoke up." And that was the truth. My position, State Trooper Commander, gave me leverage, but their voices gave momentum. This victory wasn't one man's battle. It was a community reclaiming its home. As they drifted off, Elena squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. "You stayed controlled. You stayed you." I brushed a kiss against her forehead. "I promised you and our baby safety. Tonight delivered that." She laughed lightly. "And you did it while I was in contractions, multitasking at its finest." I smiled, but then my eyes drifted back toward the HOA hall. Valerie stood in the doorway now, small, defeated, but no longer dangerous. Not to Elena, not to the baby, not to the neighborhood. She mouthed something, a final attempt at redemption or apology. I couldn't tell, but I didn't respond. Some endings don't require words. I helped Elena into the car just as Sean approached again. "One more thing," he said. "Residents want you to speak at the first reorganization meeting next week. They said they trust your judgment." "I'll be there," he grinned. "Feels like a new chapter." "It is." I looked back at the quiet street we fought to protect. "A better one." The engine hummed as I started the car. Elena rested her hand over mine. The night settled around us, calm, clean, safe. And as we drove home, I opened the story to the viewers one last time, knowing the journey mattered as much as the victory. If you want more stories of homeowners standing up to HOA tyranny, hit subscribe right now, share your story in the comments, and let me know where you're watching from.